Universal Audio has just released a few new plugins, and the one that I want to make a tutorial about today is the Distressor, which already was a Universal Audio plugin, but is now available to the plebs like me that don't have accelerator cards. It is now a native plugin for the Spark bundle, whatever subscription. Alright, so this is a Distressor. It's a very well-known compressor. It is a very popular and very versatile compressor. And it's probably the only compressor that can keep the voice from Glenn within workable levels. Now, this is the user interface. It looks very much like the rack mount analog unit that I have over there. They made the user interface, and normally these buttons are like on the right side of here, but it doesn't really matter. They did a lot of quality of life improvements in the plugin compared to the analog unit, because in the analog unit, if you want to switch one of these settings or these settings, you have to press this button and cycle through all the possibilities, just the same as here, which is, fair on the analog unit, but digitally things can be easier. So you can just click on the things that you want to do here. You don't necessarily need these buttons. And what is good to know is that when you want to make a combination, for instance, high pass plus distortion, you can use shift to combine settings, and without shift you can just use one setting. So that's really cool, and shift generally is a magic button within this plugin, because if you press and hold shift you can do fine-tuning of the knobs. This is without shift, this is with shift, and you can also circle the other way around on these buttons when holding shift. When holding alt or option, you can reset all these controls. So let's reset everything back to factory and work from there. Now, the first thing that I've noticed, which was a little bit weird, is the two bypasses on here. We have a bypass, which is the original bypass as on the Distressor, which actually in the analog domain works with relay. So it's like true bypass, or however you want to call it, and it basically disables the whole circuit. And it's the same in the plugin. However, the processing stays active when using this bypass knob, so that it can easily be unbypassed, which is very important on the accelerator cards, because it reserves the processing power on those cards, while the main power button here actually disables the whole processing. I am running an M1 Mac Mini, both for the studio as for the video production, so no M1 Pro or Max or something, and it is consuming a 2% CPU when turned on, around 2%, and almost no CPU when turned off. I think on very big sessions it might be valuable to automate such a button in order to keep a session workable, definitely when you have a lower powered computer. Now, as I said, this compressor is very versatile. This thing can be almost anything you want it to be. That's the cool thing about a Distressor. And this starts with the ratio settings, because there are a lot of different ratio settings in here. We've got a 1:1 ratio setting, which doesn't create any compression at all, but it does create the saturation that is in here. So if you just want to have the saturation, you can use the 1:1 setting in here. We've got 2:1 and 3:1. And the interesting thing about these settings is that it's not just the ratio that you are adjusting, it's also the knee that is being adjusted. And these two settings come with a super soft knee, like a 30 dB wide knee, which is like, enormous knee, enormous gentle slope into the compression. The 4:1 and the 6:1 is of course a higher ratio and a steeper knee. The 10:1 setting says opto underneath it, because this basically changes the whole compressor. It actually has a different detection circuit behind it, and really simulates optical compression. And it also says it over here, like if you put this to 10 and this one to 0, it's the most optimal for opto compression. Let's put it to 10, by the way, not more than 10, just 10, like that. Let's make sure the buttons align. And this way you're simulating like the LA2A, LA3A, whatever they are. The optical VCA style compressors that we all know and love. And then we have the 20 to 1 and nuke setting. These are like hard knee settings, very extreme settings. And the nuke setting basically is called that way because even the intensity of a nuclear blast won't pass this limiter. So this is literally a limiting setting, and it's really great to pump up room microphones or something, or to gently use in order to capture some transients or some shootouts on vocals or something. That's something that I'm actually using it for. So I'm using it more at the end of the chain. And whenever a vocal pops out of the compression that I'm already doing, this thing captures it. So I'm really adjusting it very slightly just above the average level of the vocal. So yeah, those are the different ratio settings, and I think that calling this ratio is wrong. How I would see this is these are different intensity settings or different compressor settings. Basically every single one of these settings kind of loads a completely different compressor in there. It's from the least intense to super intense. It's how I am seeing this. So basically ignore the ratio here and just see this as intensity. Or how you can also see this is as some kind of a mode setting. Just remember it does more than just ratio. Then we have the detector setting, which is the side chain setting. Now, as far as I could figure out, the Distressor doesn't accept external side chaining, but this is for the internal side chain. So for the signal that the compressor actually responds to. And one of the things we can do is we can use a high pass filter. And the high pass filter is a simple high pass filter on 100 Hertz, 60 dB per octave, and basically filters out, all the low frequencies in the compression. Definitely cool when using on drums or on master buses or something where there is a lot of low frequencies in there, and you just don't want to have that pumping effect of low frequencies in your detection circuit. There's also a bell filter in the detector, which is a 6 kilohertz boost, probably at a Q factor of 1. I couldn't figure that out, but it emphasizes the 6 kilohertz range in the detector circuit a little bit, and really nice for processing vocals or acoustic guitars or those type of things. Then it will be a little bit more sensitive to that higher range. And of course you can combine these settings together. There's also a link mode in here, and what the link mode does on the analog units is you can connect two units together and then link the gain reduction together. Definitely great for stereo files. And in here, in the mode that I'm running it now, because I'm running it as a stereo plugin, the link is doing exactly that. So unlinked is independent gain reduction on your left and right channel. And if you have a lot of stereo stuff happening with, certain instruments panned to the left or certain instruments panned to the right, it's better to use the linked mode, because then both channels will reduce the amount of gain at the same time, and then it doesn't mess up your center image. However, it's cool to experiment with this in stereo recordings, because sometimes unlinking it in a stereo recording that is very well balanced throughout the stereo field actually creates a little bit of width, but it really depends on the compression and settings and that kind of stuff. Definitely experiment with this. Now, there is some kind of a hidden feature or bug in the analog unit, and that is when you're not using the link mode, when you haven't plugged in anything in the back of the unit for the stereo linking, just using it as a mono unit. If you then enable the link mode, the compressor changes the sound color and the compression behavior a little bit. And this is simulated in the plugin as well. Whenever you use this plugin as a mono plugin, so on a mono channel, and load up the mono version of the plugin, it actually simulates the same linking behavior as the analog unit would do with mono, without any cables in it. And it is definitely something to try out whenever you're using this thing in mono, but also keep in mind that if you're going to switch up your Distressor with this little tweak or bug or whatever you want to call it to stereo, then it will sound different. And this also goes for presets made in mono using this link mode. Whenever you're going to stereo, it's going to sound different because then the linking all of a sudden works properly and it doesn't influence the sound character of the unit. And now it's time to finally talk about something that matters, which is audio. I mean, it's the thing that we hear, although the detector is super important, of course, because it will completely change the compression behavior. We've got a high-pass filter in here, which is a high-pass filter at 80 Hertz, and it's quite a steep filter, definitely for an analog unit. It's 18 decibels per octave, and it's great on vocals and stuff where you want to, filter out those low frequencies. It's very handy that it's in there. There are also 2 distortion modes in here. By default, without these lights on, it's in distortion mode 1, which is gentle distortion. It's not a clean compressor without these things turned on. Distortion mode 2 is a very tube-like even harmonics type distortion, and distortion 3 is more uneven harmonics, more like a tape machine. You can only choose one of these modes or just turn it off for mode 1. You cannot combine these modes together or something. However, you can combine it with the high pass filter, of course. Now, in order to know how much distortion is actually going on, we've got distortion indicators here. And if I play some audio through this and, drive a little bit of input here, you can see that my 1% total harmonic distortion light turns on, which means there's 1% of distortion. The red light turns on at around 3% of distortion, and whenever the output is clipping. The good news is that the output control here is after this whole distortion circuit. So even though there's clipping happening, you can still gain down to comply with your normal levels within your DAW, so you don't have to go crazy and drive everything in the reds. Now down here we have our 4 controls for the compressor. It's not a traditional compression 4-pack control because this compressor works with input and output gain. So how this works is if you want to drive the compressor more, you can gain up your input a little bit more, and then you have to gain down your output as well in order to stay unity with your level. This thing doesn't have any auto gain, which is like the stupidest thing ever, but I don't know if Universal Audio is ever going to add this to their products. What is good to know is that this input control is not a software input control. It actually emulates the input control on the analog unit, and it is a non-linear control. So you're literally driving a circuit a bit louder or less loud, and with that comes a little bit more or less color. The same goes for the output gain, and the output gain literally is at the end of the whole plugin stuff, but it is emulated according to the analog unit, so there is some color differences with this, although it is very, very small, but still gotta know it. The attack goes from 1 to 10. There's no 11 in here, which is weird. Like 10 is 1 less than 11, but settings in here are, if you want to know it, 50 microseconds, so very 1176-like, all the way up to 30 milliseconds. Although I do prefer just using my ears and listening to like, hey, what is nice, what is cool. I actually, don't really care about those numbers a lot, the millisecond numbers, but keep in mind that it's like a very fast at the attack settings, and if you use it in 2 to 1, 3 to 1 or 4 to 1, the 0 setting can be even faster. Yeah, even faster. The release also goes from 1 to 10, again no 11 in there, and on the fastest settings it's 5 milliseconds, on the slowest setting it's 3.5 seconds, and the optical compression behavior can be different because it's more program dependent. The release can go up to 20 seconds actually, and that's basically because of how an optical compressor works. Now, there are 2 extra controls in here that are not on the analog unit, which is the headroom control and the mix control. So first of all, the headroom control, what this does is it changes the internal operating level. You can change basically a small input-output gain, clean input-output gain before and after the plugin, and you can adjust it with 4 dB steps. So if I go to the left, it lowers the input gain and ups the output gain so that you're still in unity. And and thus lowers the level within the plugin. If I go the other way around, it does it the other way around. So it sends more level into the plugin and lowers the level at the output of the plugin. And it does this in 4 decibel steps. And with this, you can either go cleaner, so lower levels within the plugin, or drive it more extreme within there. Really nice control, and this all has to do with the fact that normally in the analog domain we have different levels that we can work on. Usually when you insert it in a console, you can drive it a little bit more from there, or drive it a little bit less, all that kind of stuff, and it makes it just easier with this headroom control to do that. So definitely test different settings out in here. Another added feature is a mix knob, so you can use this for parallel processing as well. And a small detail here, you can click dry and comp and it will immediately go to the full setting of one of these two. Now the best way to start with using a Distressor is by making sure that all these lights are off. This button is set to 6 and all these controls are set to 5. However, if I'm resetting all the controls, the default preset in here, it is 5.5.5.6.5. The Distressor, whenever you insert it, is boosting a little bit of gain, which really annoys me. The best setting in here is 5.5.5 and then 5.25. So somewhere over here. Then it's at unity gain, and I would love the default preset to be unity like this. So this is the best starting position, and you can start to work from here with increasing your input a little bit to get more compression or less compression, and walk through the different ratio settings from here depending on what you're trying to achieve. And because your attack and release are in the center setting as well, it's pretty easy to just judge like, hey, do I need a faster or slower attack? Do I want it to be more snappy or more laid back or whatever, and adjust that from there. And this thing, as I said, is good at a lot of different things, a lot of different instruments, a lot of different applications. You can use it on individual instruments like kicks, basses, vocals, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, name it, you can use it on there because it's so versatile. You can use it on drum bus compression, and I've even seen cases of people using this simply on the master bus, just a little bit of compression on there as well. It's also very good at simulating a lot of different compressors. I don't want to go into depth too much about that. Unless you want to see that, then leave a comment down below. However, I think it's good to not stick to those things too much and actually try to walk outside of the already settled paths with this. As said, like you can put this one into opto mode, which is like this, but then you can play with these settings as well and then get into compression, and that wasn't possible with an LA2A. So yeah, really just play with this using all the knowledge that I've just given to all of you. And I think that it's very easy to quickly get a great sound out of the Distressor. Whether it's the plugin or the analog unit, it's just a very nice unit. So if you don't have it already, check it out. I'll put an affiliate link in the description down below. And by using that affiliate link, you're supporting the channel a little bit as well. I also have a few general affiliate links, which I'll link over here. How an affiliate link works, by the way, is if you purchase something after clicking one of these links, a little bit of your purchase gets kicked back to me as a little bit of a thank you. You can also use the thank you feature of YouTube to thank me for these tutorials, or become a channel member and get access to even more content, because the Distressor is not the only plugin that Universal Audio has released today for Spark. There are actually more plugins available native now, and I'll make sure to basically make a tutorial of all of the Universal Audio plugins. However, I won't have them available immediately, but I'll link the playlist with those tutorials over here, and make sure to check that one out. Now, if you don't want to become a member and just want to watch more videos, consider watching this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Keep pushing, and bye-bye.